Good morning. Good morning, Zimbabwe, and welcome to Zimbabwe Daily. My name is Yvonne Muchaka, and I do hope I find you well. Welcome to our afternoon daily look at what is happening. Today is day 14 of the national lockdown level 4. The nation has been on lockdown since 30 March 2020, and we only had to slide back into level 4 a week, well, exactly 2 weeks ago. And today, Monday, 18 January 2021, we just want to take a look at some of the major issues that have been making headlines in our media. And one of those stories is the Ugandan story. So, right now, I just want us to have a small recap of what happened in Uganda over the weekend.
The people of Uganda have not elected a new president. They've got the old one back for a sixth successive term.
I'm feeling very okay that President Museveni has won the election policy.
And that's absolutely fine with this group of motorcycle-riding Yoweri Museveni supporters. One of Africa's longest-serving leaders, President Museveni, has claimed 58% of the vote, outmaneuvering his youthful rival, Bobi Wine, in a contentious and violent campaign. Yet millions of Ugandans seem happy with the result. The 76-year-old president addressed the nation, promising to govern with total integrity.
Political actors act only in the interest of the people, not in the interest of anything else. Not in the interest of the elite, not in the interest of foreigners, not in the interest of this group or that elite group, but in the interest of the people, the ordinary people.
But there are a lot of people in this country who do not trust him. And at a ramshackle pool hall in Kampala, Bobi Wine supporters said they couldn't stomach another 5 years of a president they call granddad.
We don't like him. He's cheated us.
The election wasn't fair.
When members of the ruling party tried to hold a victory rally, things got heated. But the organizer, called Obama Hussein, said Museveni is basically perfect.
His system is so perfect. So we after the system, not somebody else that is in power. His system is so perfect.
That's not a popular view among younger Ugandans, who delivered the president's party an unmistakable message. National television news informing the public that more than 25 cabinet ministers had lost their seats.
But the performance of our ministers and many of our MPs, especially around the central region, has been a real shocker. It is something that we need to go back and investigate and find out.
Opposition leader Bobi Wine was not seen in public, despite the fact that he'd won 3.5 million votes. His home outside Kampala had been surrounded by members of the security services. A spokesman said they'd been provided for his own safety.
You know, the dusty road that leads to Bobi Wine's house is starting to resemble a military installation now. There are a lot of troops, there are special forces, there are riot police, and we've seen several prison vans go in. Signs are ominous.
We found the opposition leader's spokesman in a car, wondering if there was anything he could do.
Just spoken to Honorable Chagulanyi Bobi Wine. He's effectively under house arrest. And as you can see, they're not allowing anybody to access him where he is. Anybody that tries to get there gets clobbered and gets beaten. So the soldiers have jumped into the fence. So he's defenseless. He's there with just the wife.
Mr. Wine has called the election the most fraudulent poll in Ugandan history and says he'll post video evidence online. However, the government has switched off the internet and moved the military onto the streets. John Sparks, Sky News, Kampala.
All right, so that was the report from Sky News taking us through what happened in Uganda. And I know a lot of people have raised concerns over how the election was held in Uganda. But all the same, I think it raises a lot of questions and a lot of concerns. We have 18 million registered voters in Uganda, 5.85 million votes for the incumbent, Yoweri Museveni, who is now the president-elect, 3.48 million vote for Bobby Wine, and this is Museveni's sixth term of office. So we have 2,000 observers who were deployed by Africa Elections Watch Coalition, and they observed irregularities. We saw the run-up to that election. It was so violent. There were so many arrests taking place. People were assaulted, and it's just been a sad outlook in Africa. Let's just look at that.
Ugandan dictator Museveni wants to finish Bobi Wine if he doesn't accept the rigged results of the just concluded election.
So this is what has been happening in Uganda. Soldiers besieged Bobby Wine's home, and entry was denied to all the people who came into the people who support him and his agents, his party spokespersons, and everyone. They were denied access to him. These soldiers have been around his house since the day after he pulled his on he after he elected himself, literally. And so yeah, Bobby Wine is in trouble, as it were. Right now, the Election Commission of Uganda announced the results. So the question is, why are the troops deployed around his house? Maybe they're trying to avoid another I don't know. I don't know what they're expecting there, but it's going to be quite an interesting week going ahead as we observe the happenings in Uganda. And I want to know, from your own perspective, how this election was run. I know a lot of people have been saying Bobby Wine was a social media president. He was popular online, etc. But I think we've also seen that he was quite popular. 3.48 million votes are not a joke. But beyond that, what happened to the other 8 million voters? Why didn't they vote? And why? What was expected essentially from that election? So it's going to be quite an interesting week of observing what is going to take place in Uganda. And I think we're going to have quite an interesting conversation. You need to join us on Wednesday, because I have got some analysts coming through, and we just want to look at democracy in Africa, what this election essentially means, and to the whole idea of democracy in Africa. Is democracy something that Africa can pursue? Is democracy something that we can find ourselves pursuing as Africans? Where exactly are we going with all that is happening? Are we building a strong Africa? Are we building strong institutions that can stand for the people? Those are some of the questions coming through. But even more interesting has been a look by others on the ideology. What is it that drives Africans, and what is it that people are really fighting for? Or are we having blind fights? Now we're having blind fights. When we say we want to contest an election, are we just contesting because we can't contest, or are we contesting because there is, we actually do believe in democracy? Interesting perspective on neo-imperialists and their interest in Uganda. Why? What is happening in Uganda, who is behind the so-called dictators of Africa? Those are some of the questions when we look at the whole fight in Egypt, in Libya, in most of Africa, in Algeria. What is it that has driven civil wars or such a violence to come on board? So it's going to be quite an interesting conversation that we intend to have with our panelists as they keep on confirming. Uganda. How are we supposed to believe in elections as the younger generation when all we see are fights? And there was a video that I saw earlier on when Seweni was a younger self, and he was talking to some students and telling them that you'd want, one of them to become the future president, saying that the challenge of African leaders is that they stay long in power. And here we are seeing him coming on sixth term in office. Those are 6 times 5 years, 30 years in power. How do we do this to the next generation? Are we ever going to find a situation where, as Africans, we are able to make our own decisions and elect our own leaders without having to look over your shoulders? The violence that was experienced in Uganda, the torture that took place, the killings that took place. It's all a sad indictment on the people who are calling for democracy in Africa. But under whose term are we following this so-called democracy? So I think it's going to be a very interesting conversation to just look at the whole term of democracy. When we say democracy works, like the book that the former president Olusegun Obasanjo, Tendai Biti, and the others coined, when they say democracy works, under whose definition of democracy are we talking about? Because we see that most of the time civil wars are actually a creation of some superpowers who want resources that are in that specific country. There is so much natural wealth that we have in our environments as Africans, and we begin to ask those questions. Why are we having wars in Nigeria and Mozambique? After discoveries of certain natural resources. So what exactly is happening? What is it about Yoweri Museveni that keeps him in power? What is it? Why does he want to keep on staying in power? 30 years on, he's the only person who's been known since 1980. 788 as the leader of Uganda. Why can't he give the younger generation an opportunity to lead? And I think this is a question that begs so many answers. We have the same problem here in Zimbabwe. We've seen the same problems emanating in so many African countries. And then we wonder why the young people seem to be so bitter. And I think for some reason, they're locking him up. He is under house arrest for some reason, probably for whatever reason. They want to make sure that these 3.48 million votes that the Commission of Uganda has declared on Bobby Wine do not actually stand up to defend their vote. And maybe the question is, how do you defend your vote? We've seen here in Zimbabwe, we had legal routes that were taken, but even these legal routes did not yield anything. So it is going to be interesting to see what happens in Uganda. Right. I would want to hear what you have to say. I see Don Nasi says, "Congratulations, Mr. President Bobby Wine. M7 must go in all means." Well, Yoweri has been declared the president. So how do we deal with that? How do the Ugandans deal with that? I think we have had an experience here in Zimbabwe that so many of us have seen. We also saw a little bit of the difference between stronger institutions and democracy happening even in the United States. We have seen President Trump literally refusing to leave office and saying that there was massive rigging that took place to replace him. So when you look at what is happening in the United States and how the institutions have been used to ensure that democracy stands, and how we as Africans use the same institutions to stifle the people's voice, I think those are some of the major issues that will be quite interesting. Today is day 14 of the national lockdown, level 4. I hope you're keeping yourself safe, you're masking up, and you need to ensure that you keep safe, sanitize and maintain social distance. The reason why we're doing most studio shows is because of COVID-19. We can't really be all of us out there. As you can see, it's just been myself coming through because most of my colleagues are also working from home. We want to make sure that we keep each other safe, and COVID-19 is real. So it is important that we make sure that we keep each other safe. So on Wednesday, we're going to be looking at the Ugandan election. Is this a reflection of Africa's inability to democratize or not? I will obviously get a lot of flack on that because there are some people who feel that we're doing well, but all the same, this is our Africa. This is our Zimbabwe. 16 January 2021 update. New cases 772 COVID-19 cases. There was a downward. Rate of infection. On 15 January we had 1,000. We had on 14 January, we had 1,112 infections, right? Those are the new cases recorded. On 15 January, recorded 741 cases. And yesterday, Sunday, there was a recording of 772 new cases and 17 deaths. 17 deaths on Sunday. I mean, it's really sickening, right? It's so sad that we continue to lose people. So we need to make sure that we all hold hands together and keep ourselves safe. Cumulative cases, we now have 26,881, and we have recorded 15,872 recoveries. In total, we have 683 deaths. Zimbabwe, we need to come together. We need to make sure that we are sanitizing. We need to make sure that we are maintaining social distance, and we need to make sure that we are masking up. Remember, if we do this correctly, we are saving ourselves, we are protecting the next person. So the nose has to be covered, the mouth has to be covered, and we need to make sure that we don't touch our eyes, our nose, our ears, our mouth with our hands that are unwashed. Thank you so much for joining me today as we just took a look at what is happening in Uganda. We would want to bring in our local experts on Wednesday, 20 January, as we look into the Ugandan election. So Toti Makorokoto or not to Seweni, if that is the will of the people of Uganda, we hope that there'll be peace in that country and that things will start to move. Thank you so much for joining me. My name is Yvonne Muchaka, and I hope to see you again tomorrow as we bring to you our look at what is happening in the country. Have a wonderful rest of the day, and God bless you.